The rain poured down like the sky was mourning something unseen, washing the glass walls of Hawthorne Industries with streaks of silver. Inside, the marble floors gleamed under fluorescent lights, footsteps echoing through the empty halls. Everyone had gone home. Everyone except David Morales, the night janitor. He worked silently, humming an old tune as he pushed the mop across the executive floor. He never complained, never asked for more hours, never drew attention to himself. But there was something about him, a quiet dignity, a warmth in his tired eyes, that even the most hurried employees couldn't help but notice. That night, fate decided to uncover the secret he'd been carrying for years. The discovery Evelyn Hawthorne, the company's CEO, had stayed late that evening. Her world was spreadsheets, deadlines, and relentless ambition. At 39, she had built an empire out of sheer willpower. But lately, she felt hollow. Her father's death had left her the company, but not the peace he always seemed to have. She was about to leave when she realized she'd left her phone upstairs. As she returned to her office, she saw David kneeling near the vending machine, counting a small stack of bills and coins, his fingers trembling slightly. Evelyn froze. He wasn't aware of her presence. She overheard him whisper, "It's not much this month, but maybe it'll help buy them more blankets before winter." She watched as he folded the money carefully, placing it into a worn-out envelope labeled St. Mary's Orphanage. Evelyn's throat tightened. The janitor, who earned barely enough to live on, was giving away his money. The confrontation, the next morning, Evelyn called David into her office. He came in nervously, clutching his cap in both hands. "Mr. Morales," she began, her tone neutral, "I found something last night. I'd like to ask you about it." He looked terrified. "Did he do something wrong, Mom?" She shook her head. "I saw you with an envelope. You were sending money to an orphanage." David lowered his eyes, embarrassed. "Yes, ma'am. I try to help them when I can. Half your paycheck." He hesitated, then nodded. "Those kids don't have anyone. I grew up there, you see. When I got old enough, I left to find work, but I promised myself I'd never forget them. Sisters who raised me, they gave me everything when I had nothing." Evelyn was silent. The sincerity in his voice pierced something deep within her, a place success had never touched. "But you have your own bills, don't you? Your family." David smiled faintly. "My daughter's grown, married now. I live simply. I don't need much, Miss Hawthorne. They need hope more than I need comfort." The past and the pain later that week. Evelyn couldn't shake what she'd learned. She asked her assistant to look into St. Mary's Orphanage. The report came back bleak. Crumbling walls, outdated plumbing, and barely enough funding to keep the lights on. She decided to see it for herself. When she arrived, children were playing barefoot in the muddy yard, laughing despite the cold. An elderly nun recognized her name instantly. "Oh, you're from Hawthorne Industries?" "Yes, mister." Morales told the children stories about working for such a big company. "He's our guardian angel." Evelyn's chest tightened again. She saw a little boy holding a broken toy car. His smile was bright, but his world was fragile. That night, she couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about how her life was filled with excess, luxury cars, a penthouse apartment, business dinners, while people like David quietly sacrificed what little they had to make the world better. The turning point, the following week, Evelyn invited David to her office again. "Mr. Morales," she said, her voice softer this time, "I went to St. Mary's." His eyes widened. She nodded. "You were right. They need help. Real help." He looked down, a bit ashamed. "I wish I could do more, ma'am," but Evelyn interrupted gently. "You already have. You inspired me." Then she slid a folder across her desk. "This is a proposal. The Hawthorne Foundation for Children. I want to rebuild St. Mary's and then expand. Fund schools, orphanages, community centers. But I need someone to guide it. Someone who truly understands what it means to give." David blinked, unsure if he'd heard correctly. "Me?" "Yes," she smiled. "You'll be our community outreach director. It comes with a full salary, benefits, and your voice in every decision we make." A tears welled in his eyes. "Miss Hawthorne, I don't know what to say." "Just say you'll help me make this world a little kinder," she said softly. "The challenge, But good intentions don't build miracles easily. The project faced backlash. Shareholders called it a distraction, waste of corporate funds. The media questioned Evelyn's motives. Donations stalled. David, feeling the pressure, once considered stepping down. Maybe they're right, he told her one night. I'm just a janitor. What do I know about running something this big? Evelyn looked at him, eyes firm. You know more than anyone here, David. You know what it means to care. That's what they don't understand. Together, they fought back. Evelyn used her business influence to attract donors. David visited communities, spoke on TV, told his story with raw honesty. Public fell in love with him. The man who gave half his paycheck to orphans and never sought recognition. Slowly, the tide turned. To the resolution a year later, St. Mary's Orphanage reopened. The once dilapidated building now stood proud, painted in bright colors, filled with laughter and music. The children called David Papa Dave, running to hug him whenever he visited. Evelyn stood beside him during the ribbon-cutting ceremony. Cameras flashed, but neither cared about the publicity. Do you ever regret giving so much? She asked him quietly. David smiled, eyes glistening. Never. You see, ma'am, when you give from the heart, you don't lose anything. You multiply it. She nodded, tears threatening to fall. You changed more than those children's lives, David. You changed mine. The legacy years later, the Hawthorne Foundation had funded over a dozen orphanages and schools across the country. Evelyn continued to run her company, but with a new purpose. And David, now retired, spent his days visiting the children whose futures he had helped rebuild. One day, a young girl from St. Mary's handed him a letter. Inside it read, "Toward dear Mr. Morales, because of you, I want to be kind when I grow up. Not rich, not famous, just kind." The David folded the note, smiling through tears. Far away, Evelyn looked out from her office window, watching the city lights flicker. She thought of how one humble janitor had taught her more about humanity than all her years in business ever could. And in that moment, she understood the truth, that the greatest wealth isn't what you earn, but what you give.